two puppets in 2009 to 2010 were about to find themselves at the center of one of the most important legal battles in U.S. history. Meet Otis McDonald, a Chicago resident who, along with many others, had a serious issue with the gun laws of the state. See, Chicago had a strict ordinance. No handguns allowed within city limits.
Chicago's ruling makes it almost impossible for me to own a handgun. I have a right to protect myself, so I'm taking this to court.
Chicago's handgun ban was passed in 1982. The law was strict. It banned possession of handguns within city limits except for certain exemptions like law enforcement and some registered firearms. But for McDonald, that was a problem. He wasn't a criminal. He, along with other crime victims, just wanted to protect his home.
You see, Chicago, I've got something even stronger than the state rules. I've got the Second Amendment. It's right there in the Constitution. It says, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is my right to own a gun. But wait a second, McDonald. That Second Amendment, that only applies to the federal government. I mean, it's a federal rule. Local laws like mine always have the power to regulate things differently, so maybe your rights aren't exactly as strong here, in Chicago. In 2008, a case called the District of Columbia versus Heller was decided by the Supreme Court. In a landmark decision, the court ruled that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to own a gun for self-defense at home. The Heller case was a huge victory for gun rights, but there is a catch. It only applied to the federal government and the Federal District of Washington, D.C., not the states. I thought you'd say that. That's where the 14th Amendment comes in. The clause for due process and equal protection states no law can deny any person of their rights without due process of law. That's why we call incorporation. The 14th Amendment says the Bill of Rights applies to state governments too, not just the federal government. If the Second Amendment protects individual gun ownership in District of Columbia, then it should apply to me here in Chicago. I'm taking this all the way to the Supreme Court. Your Honor, the City of Chicago has a responsibility to protect its citizens from gun violence. With hundreds of murders and violent crimes every year, the city needs to restrict access to dangerous weapons to keep the streets safe. The Second Amendment was never meant to override local laws. If the court were to apply it here, it could undermine the ability to keep Chicago safe from gun-related crimes. After months of arguments, the justices had heard from both sides, and now it was up to them to decide if the courts would extend their protection of the Second Amendment to the states through the 14th Amendment or maintain its protective gun laws.